Hey everyone, welcome back to A Little Atypical. My name is Aleja. You can call me Lay. And honestly, I'm gonna just jump right in because this is something I feel like I've just been thinking about a lot and I've been researching about a lot. So, if you can tell by the title, I want to answer the question: is self care selfish? Is glow up culture toxic? Because it's so interesting to me to see like the different types of ways the conversation could go. While I think both sides make great points, I feel like I have a lot to add to the conversation. Honestly, I'm going to skip the tarot card reading or maybe push it off to the end. And I'm going to skip the good experience of the week and learning experience of the week because truthfully, I've been in a place of solitude where nothing bad has happened, but not necessarily anything good. It's just been really like peaceful and I've been in a place of contentment. But it's just like the most relaxed I've ever been, the most freed I've ever felt. And I think that, in a sense, is such a win. So I don't think there's anything in my experience right now that has been super good or anything that I need to learn from. And as for what I'm grateful for is I'm grateful to be in a place where I feel contentment, where I just feel at ease with being myself. And I think that's where the conversation is going to start from. I was researching this a lot, like I mentioned before. I think people did make good points about globe culture and self care, but I also think they missed the mark on the conversation in certain aspects. Let's start with globe culture. Globe culture, a lot of people are like hating the videos because they feel like it pushes the idea that we have to do more, that we have to change ourselves, that it kind of erases kids being kids and people at a young age that view social media and view this type of content think that they need to do in order to become an adult. And they do make a lot of good points, but I think when they say stuff like that, they miss the point of what does glowing up even mean to them? Because when they talk about it, it sounds like they're living and thinking about it through other people's expectations. And I think the thing that a lot of people forget is things like self-care and things like glow ups. They are so personal, and a lot of times they have to come from where a certain person is at. I was thinking about this while I was brushing my teeth because, okay, so when I was growing up, I had braces, right? And I kind of think a globe journey is like that. Like, it's not something everyone needs, but it focuses on something very specific and it takes a while for some people, and for other people it may not take as long and they don't need to wear the braces as long. I had my braces for like I think 3 years, and another person that I knew that had braces, they had their braces for like a year, and some people just needed Invisaligns. I know this sounds very off topic, but it's an analogy. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But that's what I was thinking, that like a glow up process is kind of like that, where it really is depending on where a person is starting from, you know? And I do think a lot of times there is a lot of capitalism in glow up culture where a lot of people are pushing products and stuff like that. But at the same time, those people, because they look a certain way, that you or certain people value what they say more. Because I think what a glow up to me is the process of like trying and the process of learning, and also not staying at a place that makes you miserable. Like, if I was to talk about glowing up, I think that's the best way I can describe a glow up journey. I can't tell a person like what would be a glow up for them. I can only talk about what's a glow up for me. When a lot of times when people talk about glowing up, it has to come from a place of self love. But even I don't even think that's right. glowing up, especially when you're coming from a place of self-hatred, is the goal isn't to love yourself, but is to even be neutral with yourself before you can love yourself or even like yourself and feel deserving of everything that you want to do. Because I feel like if you don't even feel like you're worth it, a person won't even try. That's what a glow up for me is, doing what I can to try to not hate my situation, because I was in a place of self-hatred before. And a lot of those times it was because I was in a time where I was searching for validation and trying to find it in other people. And I think that's where the glow up stuff really saved me. But when I had, like, I guess in a sense, a mental glow up, when I started to realize when I was glowing up the first time, which was actually kind of a mix of puberty, I talk about it in the sense lightly because since I was still in high school, even though I did start puberty really young for my age, I mean, I even got my period when I was like 10. So the way I developed was a lot different than people my age. And I was also a little more developed top wise compared to people in middle school. So when I had my glow up, it really was changing the way I did my makeup. It was changing the way I ate, because especially after a time of like a lot of restriction and not eating at all. No, actually, scratch that. It was a time of like, I did not eat in middle school after someone called me fat. So I went through a long period of self-hatred. And then after that, it was a period of restriction. Then after that, when it came to my eating habits, then it was like overindulging and like saying like, oh, I eat like this because I restricted myself so long and I still look good, so might as well eat what I want. So what I think a glow up actually is like, one, trying and learning and loving the process to find balance between both. Because, yeah, it could be toxic. But I think if we put more people in the front line who is like in the process, instead of putting people in the front line who already kind of like met their process. Because I think what the issue is, people want to see results and they don't think the process is enough for a person to be listened to. Like, think about it. So the people who are like the forward face of a glow up journey is usually people who are put together, quote unquote, society's version of put together, right? But why does that person have more valuable insight than a person who's going through the process? You know? And also, even if a person has grown up, quote unquote, they did it in a way that was beneficial to their life, because you don't necessarily know what area they were working on to decide to like glow up. You know, like for some people, it was the physical aspect, maybe, but what they had to do was a lot different. Maybe instead of having or wanting to lose weight, maybe for them the process was gaining weight. Maybe for them it looked like they always had a decent relationship with food, so they just needed to learn to exercise and get motivated to do that. Maybe for another person it's improving their relationship with food because they never had that, because they grew up in a household that was kind of like not to be wasteful. So then they felt guilty throwing away food, and that really damaged their relationship with food, because even if they didn't want to eat something, they were forced to eat something to not be wasteful. We don't know everyone's circumstances. And I feel like when it comes to talking about the toxicity of glow up culture, while I can agree certain aspects can be, but I also think mindset along with it from the person who views it as toxic is a huge part of the conversation. Because when I watch those videos, I kind of like take it as like, oh, this is cool. It's interesting to see like what people are doing for themselves, not so much of like what I need to do to glow up. I kind of wanted to work on making more balanced content, because while I love glow up videos, that does not mean I don't have critique about them and the way people speak about glowing up and the way people speak about self-care. With so much accessibility to the internet, and I think this is a key aspect when people talk about this type of content and kids viewing it, while I do say people need to be cautious of what they put out there, which is why I'm so, I guess, cautious about saying, like, oh, my goals and like what I envision for myself, because people will probably take it as like, oh, I'm saying that's the right thing to do, when really I'm just saying what feels right for me to do and what I want to challenge myself to do. And I think that conversation goes back that parents, people are probably going to hate this take, but I think that parents need to be more observant of what their kids are doing on social media. And also, because more parents that had accessibility to social media should have the conversation of reality versus social media. And also, they're gonna have the conversation of, they're probably gonna have friends who parents will have different rules than them, expectations than them, and will not regulate them the same way. And I think have like a really authentic conversation about social media, because especially now, kids are being put online from a young age and have like that accessibility to these type of videos. And I do think sometimes we're putting too much restriction on what people should put out instead of putting restriction on like the person who's actually responsible for growing them up a way and teaching them, you know? And then moving on from glow up culture, I really want to talk about self-care culture and how a lot of people view it as selfish or narcissistic, and how it pushes society into more of an individualistic view. Well, I could agree to that to some degree, but I also think when talking about self care and talking about glow culture, it's really important to acknowledge the mindset that works with it and the expectations you have going forward from it. With self care, I think self care can look like whatever you need it to look like, because self care is ultimately a part of glow culture. I think self care can be as selfish or unselfish as you want it to be. Because one thing I was really thinking about when it comes to self care is that self care really helped me not to validate myself on other people's opinions. Which for some people, this sounds like so backwards for, because the thing is, a lot of people do have the assumption that if you participate in self care, that you're trying to impress someone, that you're trying to this, that, and the third. But truthfully, I stay in my solitude so much that me working out is not so that I can date anyone. Honestly, I don't want to date anyone when I really just got out of a long-term relationship, or if I want to show off or show out or whatever. I spend a long part of my day working out, and I'm going to be so real about it because I have the time to do it. And what I want to prioritize right now is my health, and also understanding what is the best way for me to function before I get another job again. Because with what I used to think was working remote is like the best option for me, because I'm awkward, I don't like the commute and stuff like that. I actually really hate commuting. But also, one thing I realized from this job is how with remote jobs, technically, there could be a lot of adjustments and expectation for you. Like, I had to work such long hours. And when I say like that, I mean I would wake up early, do my thing that I need to do because like I am a morning person personally. Like I love waking up at 4:30, 5 a.m., which I know a lot of people's going to be like, are you trying to say that you're better or something? No, I just like waking up those times because I feel the most at peace at those times. Because while I don't like staying up late all the time, I do love waking up early because it gives like the same sense of peace where the world is just so quiet still, but while being in the morning, you know? That's why, like, when I wake up at like 9 or 10, I just feel like the world is so busy that I'm just getting like thrown into a loud space. But, anyways, what I'm saying is this is a glow for me to figure out more about my health and my boundaries, especially when it comes to work. Because if I'm going to have a job, even though in my soul I know my dream way of working is to be my own boss and have as much creative freedom as possible. But until I can do that full time, I need to look for the best way to live that provides for me. And a lot of times I do feel a certain way. I just feel kind of like bad when people are like, yeah, this is how you advance in your career. This is how you, this is that. Because the truth is, my goal was never really to advance my career. I just want money to live my life until I can live the life of my dreams. But not everyone feels that way about work. A lot of people feel like their glow up, in a sense, is getting a higher advancement position in their career. And that's great for some people, but I'm not like that. And that's not where I'm at. And I do think that if you try to do things, try to do things out of trying to find validation, that is when it's the most toxic. But I do think self-care can save people from being overly dependent on other people's opinions and perspectives. Because let's talk about people pleasing for a second. People pleasing, and this is coming from someone who's a recovering people pleaser, self-care saved me because a lot of those times when I was like looking for validation in some shape or form, that I was not present. Also, when I was like what I view myself as the most unhealthiest, I was the most in my head a lot, to a point where I was not focusing on what other people were saying. I was just kind of like in my own head. So by doing self-care, it honestly made me more able to receive information from other people. It allows me to be nicer to other people, and it allows me to be fully present with other people. So it kind of like saved me from that, because then I feel like I wasn't having authentic relationships because I was looking for something in them instead of trying to take care of myself so I can just be a supporting person to them. That's why I feel like self-care is so important. While I do think self-care and glow up journeys are a lot of work, but I also think it's only as much work as you need it to be. I don't know if that makes sense, but what I'm trying to say is a glow up for you will not be a glow up for me, and vice versa. Self care will look like what I need for me, and self care should look like what you need for you. And of course, you can watch the videos and like take in what everyone else is doing, but the point is to only take it with a grain of salt, because you don't know that person's medical history. You don't know the person's family history. You don't know how they grew up. If they grew up in a situation where they had one parent or zero parents, or lived in a foster care system, or got adopted. Like, I feel like we only think about where we see the person at and think that's why their opinion on something is more valuable than a person that's kind of like in their progress era. And I do think the biggest way we can shift that to make it less toxic is stop putting expectations on glow up culture and self-care culture. Because even as someone who makes glow up content and self-care content, I'm only telling you things from my experience, from my present view of things I learned in my life so far. And that could change because life is always changing. Mindsets are always changing. And I'm always going to be in this progress era. But as long as I'm trying my best, I'm happy. As long as I am doing what I can, I'm happy. And I know sometimes people are not in the space to do that. Sometimes people are really, really down. Sometimes a person is in a place of depression. So I'm not talking about it if you are in that place, because sometimes people really are at rock bottom. But the beautiful part about being at rock bottom is you can only go up from there, you know? Because if you really hit your lowest of lowest points, there's no way you can go lower. So you can start making your way up. And you can start by getting to a place of, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if I'm worth this work, but I'm going to try anyways. And it does take a while for some people to get to the I'm going to try anyways part. But that's part of their progress. So I know this has been a lot of rambling, but it's just something that's been on my mind a lot. And while I could view glow up culture and self-care in a certain aspect, like I can understand why people feel that way, feel pressured by it, because a lot of things in society is pressuring, and a lot of people that do get the opportunity to be in the spotlight that people listen to do push capitalistic tendencies. But I think once you get to a place where you decide what are your own expectations and what feels right to you and what beauty feels like to you, then you get to a point of real self-care and real glowing up. Because not only are you not living by anyone's expectations, standards, or anything like that, you actually make your own. You feel more aligned with yourself and more aligned with what feels right to you. For some people, moving out could be glowing up. I want to spend as much time with my mom as possible right now because I only have her. For some people, being in a relationship is a glow up. I was in my first relationship, which was also a long-term relationship, and I'm so grateful for the experience. I'm so grateful for him because while our relationship wasn't perfect, I learned a lot with him, and he's always going to be someone who I respect and someone who's always going to be special to me in some way because he saw good in me when I couldn't see good in myself, you know? And there would be a lot of guys who would take advantage of that, but he was so patient with me, and I'm grateful for the experience I had with him. I don't have a job right now, and a lot of people would see that as a failure, but I feel so free right now to be taking risks and to really challenge myself to build my dream life. All of this is progress, and all of it is valid. It's just who's willing to see it as valid as the people, the big people who talk about glow up culture and self-care culture because they're seeing their end results while you're seeing just the beginning of me. Because this is the first time I'm without instruction. First time I'm not focused on school or trying to get a career. It's my first time just truly living as myself. And I hope that my content inspires people to truly live as themselves, to figure out what's right for them instead of just doing what I'm doing because I say, oh, this product is good, or like this is good, or whatever. Because my version of good will not be yours. My version of bad will not be yours. Just stay true to yourself wherever you are in your journey, whether you're just beginning because you're learning to re-love yourself, or learning to love yourself, or learning to like yourself, or learning to be neutral with yourself. If you're in the middle and you just have to recenter because you took a few steps back and now you're ready to refocus, or maybe you met your goals, so you're trying to think about what's next. But if you are at that point, I hope you take a moment to celebrate your success for making it and really think about what will really be in alignment with you. I know this wasn't a traditional episode, but I hope you enjoyed my rambling thoughts, because I do think I want to have a space on my social media, to have space to really express my thoughts on things instead of just giving advice, because I feel like sometimes we need more perspective than advice. If you are on YouTube, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to like, rate, and review. It means so much to me. I really hope you enjoyed. Have a good day, evening, or night. And if you hear background noise, I am so sorry. This is why I love waking up early, so I can do stuff like this and really like have the world be quiet while I try to navigate what I'm thinking. But until next time, also, I'm very sorry there was no lifestyle design episode. For the next 2 weeks, I don't know if there's going to be a lifestyle design episode, because I already started planning out my channel and what I really want to do for it. An entire schedule for next year. I've been working on like prep, and also something I want to post on a monthly basis. So stay tuned. And yeah, okay, I'm done talking now.